Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the program. We are still talking real estate, physical planning, urbanization, and the policies that can influence growth in these sectors. Of course, I'm with Dr. Derek and Mr. Agaba Vincent, and we are still breaking this down. Before we went into the break, we were talking about urbanization. We recently had several cities enrolled on the cities list here in Uganda, and very many people from different districts, especially Masaka. There was a lot of excitement for people from Masaka, Mbarara, and I think Masaka had been exploded at some point, and they went to court, and it was a really big case, and we were very excited for these cities. And now we are seeing that we qualify to have these smart cities. Do we have what it takes to plan for these cities? And we've talked about the challenges, lack of planning for the different, housing and also roads and so many other things. Now, whose responsibility is it? And what should the government do? What should the local government do? What should you as an individual who is planning to buy a house in a city do? What should you do in order to fit into society in an organized manner? I'll come back to you, Mr. Derek. Before we went for a break, we have seen the nature of cities, and we don't have to go to Dubai actually to look at good cities. Really, in Africa, we've seen organized cities. I've been to Kigali myself, and I admired everything about Kigali. I don't know if they hide the bad things, but I admired most of the things. You find all the roads have lights. People borders have lanes. Trucks have lanes, the roads are organized, the buildings are also organized. Of course, they still have challenges. They have slums. I know there's a lower part of Kigali before Kigali is on a hill, but down here there are some slums, and they're trying to address that. But what do you think is lacking in terms of policies or in terms of laws? Because like you mentioned, we have different laws. The act, the Land Act is there, different laws have been put in parliament, but still we are not seeing compliance. And we're saying, what can be done now to address the non-compliance to the status quo? Why isn't government able to implement the laws that have been put in place? What is the role of the viewers themselves, the individuals now out there planning to buy houses? Because 70% of our population are young people, and trust me, they haven't probably constructed a house of their own, and they're learning from what what the people out there who already have houses are doing. So what should they be looking out for in order for us to have organized cities? Yes.
I think currently, I strongly believe that if you go into the physical planning sector, other than a few challenges here and there, a few loopholes here and there, I believe the laws and policies that are in place should be enough.
So we don't need more laws
we don't need more laws. I know a government might say, I need this law. But the major problem is enforcement. Why should you have a new law when you are failing to enforce the one which is existing? So to me, I think that we need to come out with that strong hand to enforce the law the way it is. Of course, there are quite many laws that guide the urban development process. It's not the Physical Planning Act alone. Public health, building, business, so it is multifaceted. But in that multifacet, we need to enforce all the laws the way they are. I believe if Kigali interests you, is because of seriousness, of purpose, as far as what they want Kigali to look like is concerned. Number two, we need to come out strongly and fund and support certain particular areas that are important as far as orderliness is concerned.
Yes.
For example, the physical planning units and departments are some of the underfunded.
Yes.
Some at the local government level, they don't even have a vote. Vincent talked about it. I am only one physical planner in Ruwero district. How will I monitor what is going on in the whole of Ruwero district? I am one or two, maximum 3 physical planners, Guru City. How will the 3 who are even not funded monitor or plan for Guru City? So government needs to come out strongly and know that the basis for development is physical planning. For example, it disturbs me a lot when we talk about the parish development model and there is no land use planning aspects in it. Will it work? People at times they say, I'm selfish because I'm what? I'm a land use planner. But the truth is, everywhere in the world, you should first plan how you are going to use the land before you even inject in a lot of what?
Money.
A lot of money. So, enforce the law the way it is and fund the process.
No. Thank you very much, Doctor. And concerning funding, I was reading about Ms. Tanga, we don't know who actually, tabled back in May, asking government to actually, fund physical planning at district level, town level, and he was complaining that the budgets for these districts, in as far as planning is concerned, are so meager compared to other things like defense and so on. And of course, you said it's a multifaceted thing where we need to also look at the other aspects like health, education, and so on. But still, we are giving physical planning very little
Peanuts.
Peanuts. How much money do you think we need to put in physical planning to get what we want? Because even in the past, we've seen sectors that have received a lot of money and still not used it right. So what can we also put in place as a framework for us to see that this money does what it's supposed to do? You as a physical planner, what are those key aspects you look out for when it comes to funding?
Number one would be like take the new cities. A lot of areas were added on the new cities which were not part and parcel of the plans of the cities. So government needs to commit money to fund the plan, put in place physical development plans for these cities. And there are different categories really of plans. We don't have a lot of time. But as I said, for example, today, the cabinet approved the national physical development plan. I would assume that having that plan having been approved, for example, a trading center is not supposed to come up anyhow where it wants. That plan should dictate where points of urbanization are as far as Uganda is concerned. So money has been put in that plan. Money has been put in plans for quite a number of cities and municipalities. But the other key thing that we never think about critically is that, and now we're in real estate. So if the plan is saying that this area is residential, who is supposed to put up those houses? We always keep assuming that it is the government. So we never connect the plans to the people who are responsible for development. And because of that, then the plan keeps on the wall. So I want to emphasize here and now that city residents, urban residents are key, so key as far as the development of a numbered area is concerned. And they are so key as far as either promoting orderliness or disorderliness is concerned. And I want to thank SMART24 TV for giving us this opportunity, at least pass out some message that is important as far as the sector is concerned.
Well, thank you very much, Doctor. I'll come now to you, Mr. Gaba. Let's say now we solve the problems of urbanization and we still have all these policies come to work. There's still a question on real estate about whether to buy, whether to build, or whether to rent. And many people have the dream of getting to construct their own house or getting to invest in real estate as an investment, maybe to buy rentals and or maybe to start building rentals or something. But a recent study showed that our rental yields are not fixed. For example, we don't have a policy that says rental yields are supposed to be at this rate, right? Every landlord does what they feel. I invested a lot of money in these apartments, so I should price them the way I want, right? So we don't have any policy to monitor that. Also, on the other hand, a gentleman invested 295 million in a given, real estate apartments, and he projected that if I get 1.9 million every month, I'll probably get this money back in 10 years. His dream was actually not realized. 10 years down the road today, he has not even got 3/4 of what he invested. And looking at other, for example, investments, one of the friends advised him that if he had invested that money, for example, treasury bonds, lending to government on a longer term, or maybe a 20-year note, he would be making 45 million in profit. And remember, these also provide liquidity because we have a secondary market where you can sell the bond and get back your initial deposit. But you're coming out with over 45 million in interest. So the challenge here is, yes, people want to invest in real estate, but is it worth it? Is it an asset that we can look at as something that we can fall on and is not as risky as other ventures?
Thank you very much. I think when we are trying to talk about investing in real estate, we should not look at one direction. I think for me, real estate has 3 angles at every time. There is the rent, there is the appreciation, and there is what we call unlocking the liquidity by actually using that real estate as collateral.
Yes.
So there are 3 ways of actually getting money through real estate. You have a building, you are getting rent in the short term. But the other thing is the appreciation of value as the development happen around that environment. And the other one is you can use that title to access financial instruments to do other things at the same time. So when you use those 3 angles of real estate, then you see the viability part of it. Remember, there is the 4th one, is wealth creation. Because real estate is one of the most long-term investments that one makes. And unless catastrophe happens, like earthquake, or you build in a swamp and Lake Victoria comes for it, this is an asset which has a lifespan of on average 50 years if engineering and architecture is done well. So we don't look at real estate from the point of immediate cash flow. We look at the multiplicity of unlocking the value of that real asset at each point in time. Now, the gentleman whom you're talking about, the question is, what was his mathematics? Was it about the rent, or was it about the appreciation of the asset? And also, did he use the paper he has to do other things with it? So, I think we need to understand that. Now, renting versus buying. Traditional all over the world, we need to do incremental, we need to climb the ladder. When you leave university, I must rent a 1-bedroom apartment. When my income increases and when I have a family, I should shift to a 2-bedroom. When I grow bigger and have some more money, I should move to a 3-bedroom.
You're still renting?
If possible.
Okay.
I should go to build my own house. I can tell you in Europe or some other countries, someone who owns their own house, they are not a joke.
That's rare. That's quite rare.
They're not a joke.
Yes.
Now the challenge here is that we want to own houses before reaching halfway the ladder. renting is not bad, as long as the financial discipline the doctor talked about before, the saving culture and protecting your money is in perspective. So that by it should be a progression. Now, that also calls upon for us who are players in the sector and the government that we must have a whole value chain of housing. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, mansions, bungalows, and so forth. So you allow people to move step by step. And that's why also the issue of physical planning becomes critical. I want to stress this, that even when you're building an estate, in those estates, there are maids who work in those estates. Where do they sleep?
True.
Someone who is taking care of your child, living within your house, where do they sleep? So we can have a 1 room with a toilet and a kitchenette that is decent for that person in a certain location, somehow at an agreed distance, at the edge, to be a feeder to the posh neighborhood. Otherwise, you build a posh neighborhood, immediately a slum develops because these people need the services of the other ones. So you will create a good neighborhood in a location thinking that you have created a good posh neighborhood with all the lights and the roads and the network. Before you know, because a shamba boy must be at a certain proximity to come and do the work. A maid. So it is what we call integrated real estate development. That's what works. But that requires planning, requires foresight, and requires a lot of planning for long term. Otherwise,
participation of all the people.
because you're building a community. Yes, you're building a community. So unless you're saying that these posh people whom you're building houses for are going also to have posh maids, or posh security guards, or posh who will also be able to afford
the same kind of housing.
So logic automatically says that it's not sustainable to build only for that group, and you don't expect a slum to mushroom in the neighborhood.
There must be some sort of
coexistence.
Yes.
Coexistence. And I think the point is what we call slums. Slums can also be beautiful if there are standards. What we are talking about, that someone says every house must be painted every 5 years. These things which we think that they are cubicles, if they are, I have seen, especially on Buziga Road now, the new one which from Makindi, people are building small, that's a new style. It's like a shops. Yeah, they finish them well, paint them well, they look decent.
Yes.
They're not storage buildings. There's that modern way of building. Yes, you've seen them all over.
Commercial structures.
Yes,
you know.
yes. Now,
Now,
if those things were not haphazardly coming up, mixed up with, they would look beautiful. So we don't have to have big buildings. We don't have to have huge mansions. We need coexistence. That's my view. And if we achieve that, I mean, even this house will appreciate the other one. The other one appreciates the other one. So anyone who thinks renting is bad, I think is misleading the country. Because automatically, world over, the majority will always be renting in urban areas, and the minority will be owning those units. And some of them, even in the other countries, housing cooperatives own a lot of the portfolio of affordable housing. Because these are communities who work together, build houses for rentals. So we need to do that. So there is this, when I'm renting, I am unfortunate, I have not made it in life, and so forth. I think that's misleading. So people must really realize that it is not bad to them, as long as you have a plan to claim them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gawa. We are going to take a very quick break, and we return with our final segment. Now, in our final segment, we talked about urbanization, we talked about physical planning. Now, we need to talk about ways of financing this. we've heard of mortgages in Uganda now, very, very famous now, but also they have been famous in developed economies like the US, and they have sustained housing and physical planning as well. Because then people can afford decent housing without having to pay the whole, amount at once. And so we want to talk about that a little more. But also there's some comments on social media, and of course if you've been watching, you can still go to Twitter at SMART24 TV, and you get to put a question there for the gentlemen here. They will get it answered. We'll take a quick breather. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
SMART24, driving business.